A palette full of color, we'll leave the truth uncovered, cause only lies are white. We use the words we write to shine a light on life. My light is lava like it's hot and burning bright. Now read, recall, record, recite.
Hi everybody, we are back with an episode of And Scene. I am Cynthia Dorsey.
I'm Veronique MacRae.
And we're so happy you are here with us in the room today. Guys, I have such excitement around this episode because we are reviewing one of the most prolific up-and-coming writers to ever write for both screen and stage, the Veronique MacRae.
My goodness. She got me, y'all. She got me.
I got her. I felt like it was really important for us to cover her work because this month, September, is Suicide Awareness Month, and Veronique has written a piece that should be shown all over the world about suicide, called the Suicide Journals. But let me give you a little background about Veronique so you can learn more about her pathway, her journey to excellence. Veronique MacRae is the founder and artistic director of V-Lash Productions. She's the co-founder of the Tasty Alternative Gourmet Catering and Chef Services. She's also the founder of VMJ Publishing and Design and the executive director of Act Trinity, the 110 Project. Veronique is a graduate of North Carolina Central University in Durham, North Carolina. She has a BA in theater. She has performed in, written, produced, and directed several theatrical productions, independent films, television shows, and art presentations in North Carolina, DC, New York, and LA. Veronique's most recent credits include the role of Diane Blaine in the upcoming series Miss Education, filming in New York, Hester La Negrita in Soulfly Theater's production of Susan Laurie Parks' In the Blood, her appearance on Food Network's #1 culinary competition, Cutthroat Kitchen, as a competing chef, assistant director of the short independent film Just, and she also was the assistant director for Critical Missing that won Best Social Awareness Award in the Urban Film Festival in 2020. Suicide Journal also got Favorite Ensemble and Top 5 Shows of the Week awards in the Capitol Fringe Festival. She's also the playwright and director of the revival of the off-Broadway production of Chocolate and Vanilla at the 2015 DC Black Theater Festival in DC. Now, in addition to all of her theatrical studies, Miss MacRae completed her Master of Arts in Christian Studies at Duke University in Durham, North Carolina in May 2012. In which her one-woman show, Self-Portrait of a Sinner, emerged as her final project and later premiered at the 2014 Capitol Fringe Festival in Washington, D.C. So she has definitely merged all of her gifts. Her first book that was released August 11th, 2020 is now available, shameless plug, on Amazon. The Artist's Escape, Refreshing Renewal and Rejuvenation for the Creative Soul. And it is an excellent book. As we get into the Suicide Journal, you will find that her writing is amazing. But that's not the only piece that she has written. She's also has written, I mentioned Chocolate Vanilla, but she's also written Rainbow Children, Angel Babies, and Fruitless Fig Trees. And it made its world premiere at Showbox Theater Festival in Philadelphia in April of 2018. She additionally is in production for her up-and-coming cooking show, The Tasty Alternative, which launched on the SLM network on Roku TV in early 2020. So if you have a Roku television or the Roku app, definitely check out The Tasty Alternatives first episode. I'm so proud of this woman and the amount of work that she has produced and written, and how she merges her multi-hyphenate talented self to make sure everything comes together. And I think we would definitely be remiss if we were in this month, Suicide Awareness Month, and did not talk and review the Suicide Journal. So I'm glad that I'm sitting here with the actual playwright. We're lucky enough to be sitting here with the actual playwright, and we are going to get into the play. Woo!
It's different being on the other side.
All right. So, Veronique, tell us how you came to writing the Suicide Journal.
The idea first came to me during my first year of graduate school at Howard University. So when I left Duke in May 2012, I literally packed up, did a training in Georgia, and then 2 weeks later moved to DC and started working in a missions program until I started at Howard University School of Divinity. And during that first year, I just literally had a lot of personal challenges. I think the pressure of coming out of Duke and coming off of Duke with, at that time, was an undiagnosed illness, and falling ill my first day of class right around at Howard, and just a plethora of things. I went through a period where I was having suicidal ideations, and I actually, during my time at Howard, I called the campus police and asked them to pick me up because I did not feel safe around myself, which I'm not sure if I've ever shared before with many people. They don't really know that the root of the play actually came from a personal experience. But there was also a classmate that lived in that dorm room that was going through it at that time. And I felt as if there needed to be more discussion because the whispers around that classmate weren't supportive. And I felt that that was a problem because there was really no platform for people to express themselves, especially being in a kind of religious-based setting. You can get caught up in the pray it away, or did you ask God about it versus counseling. And, you know, eventually those conversations did shift because as more people were more willing to open up. But I never shared that personal experience while I was there with my tenure. So actually, it started out of that personal experience. But it was also in conjunction with some work that I had done with 3 young ladies some years prior to in North Carolina. And when they crossed my path, all of them had, unfortunately, were survivors of sexual assault and survivors of suicidal attempts. So between my personal experience and reflecting on their experience, that's kind of where the suicide journals began. And it focuses on teenagers and young adults and kind of what their stories are in dealing with suicide. So that's kind of where it started, just from those combined experiences and me feeling like there was a need to have some type of teaching tool or a safe space where conversation could begin. And I always believe that theater can create that safe space. So that's where it started.
All right, so let's get into it. The piece definitely, we've reviewed Ntozake Shange's work, and it's definitely written in a monologue prose. And were you inspired by Ntozake?
Yeah. Yes, so her format, Ntozake's format, along with a format, and I can't recall the author's name right now, but there's a play called Women on Fire, and I did my final project for undergrad on it. Mm-hmm. And Women on Fire had a structure of monologues telling the stories of different women. And then with Ntozake's choreo poem format, I felt like that would be the best way of delivery because the subject matter is heavy. Inherently, it's not like, oh, let's go for an afternoon and chat about suicide. And I felt like delivery through focusing on the individual stories of each character could help establish a connection with those who are viewing the stories, versus saying, oh, this is just maybe a family or a group of people. I wanted to focus on individual stories because in that, I felt that most of us met someone who was going through that similar situation. So I felt like a format like that would be best for the work when it started coming together.
Mm-hmm. Now, when in reading the play, the characters are not named. They are named by their result of suicide. So the pill popper, the shooter. Why did you choose for it the characters not to have a physical name?
They got a dual purpose in that. So the original version of the play actually has 5 characters. When we've run it in festivals based on time requirements and a few other conditions, it has run with 4. But it highlighted the 5 main types of suicide attempts that people embark upon. And then in the original version, those types matched with the gender. So of course, nothing is ever exclusive. You can't just say, oh, if this is a male, he will attempt suicide, by gunshot. But statistically, when you do research, there are certain attempts and certain things that they've tracked throughout study that show that a male may be more likely to do something that's quick and may seem extremely violent, such as gunfire, whereas they found that females may have more of a tendency to do things to where once they're found, it's not such a scene, so they may have popped pills, right? And you find them where they've just slipped away. So that was one, the first approach to it. The second approach is I didn't name them because I'm like, there's a pill popper out there in somebody's life. There's a cutter out there in somebody's life. There's a hanger. There's somebody who drowned or jumped. There's, someone who unfortunately attempted, via gunfire or shooting. And so in that goal of having people connect, I didn't want to specifically name them because, it's not just one person. These are the stories of many people. And so I didn't want to give them proper names for those reasons.
Yeah. I really also appreciated in this body of work that the characters are diverse. So you have one character who is of Jamaican heritage. You have another character who is of Islamic faith. It's a different, it just doesn't label suicide as being something in one community. It can affect all communities. So, a lot, like how in the Black community, they might say, oh, don't worry about it. Like you said, pray it away. It's not going to happen. Suicide's not going to happen in our community. Well, in fact, it is happening in everyone's community. We are all affected by it. In your research, what did you find about that? How did that influence your writing?
Over the past, I believe it was because I wrote it and did the first copyright, I believe in 2014, 2015. So of course, research and statistics have changed because it's 2020. But even then, there was a trend on the rise of African-American teenagers. I believe it was between 13 and 18 years old, and specifically African-American males. I think the rate of attempt had tripled at that time when I was doing research. And what I found daunting is that in our communities or circles, particularly in African-American community, it's like the pray it away syndrome, or no, our kids don't do that. Like I would hear a lot of people when I was doing like individual research or interviews or questionnaires, our kids don't do that. That's white kids. Or, we have Jesus. They better go pray it away. But I was like, I remember meeting 3 African-American females who I definitively knew they were brought to me through this program. It was a program set up to help them bridge back, and they did arts and worked on productions with me as part of their process of healing and moving forward from assault, and then learning their stories. They all 3 had attempted. And in fact, unfortunately, a couple of years after working with one of them called me and had attempted again. And I remember calling the ambulance and rushing to the house, and I know why, it's because the area she lived in, I beat the ambulance there. And I remember picking her up, putting her in the car, and just zooming to the hospital, and them having to pump her stomach and do this and that. So I found it very, it's dangerous to say that only this specific group deals with this situation. And the statistics were trending back then. Out here now, more in 2019 and 2020, people say, our youth are such and such, and we'll see now we're 6-year-olds and 9-year-olds who are being bullied and committing suicide, and teenagers. And now I'll start to hear a little more conversation about it, saying we need to check. But unfortunately, yes, this is Suicide Awareness Month, but we're in a culture of hashtags. So you'll hear it, and then it'll die down and go away. And then somebody else will come in the picture, and it'll die down and go away. But in my research, it has been trending, especially for younger people and for people 65 and up. So it's not just a specific age range or a specific race or a specific gender. There is something when people lose a sense of hope, right? And there feels to be nothing left. And it's not that they're trying to be malicious, and it's not that it's stupid, because so many people be like, oh, you just don't care. What about the people who love you? But they feel like that to end it is the better result, because they're just seeking some type of peace or solace. It's not out of selfishness. It's out of looking for, an answer or a closure or some form of healing. And they feel like, for most people when speaking, they haven't been able to find that. And that loss and that hopelessness, it's like, I can have peace if I end it all. So I know I kind of bridged or segued kind of off of that, but like the trend even back then I saw was an increase, particularly in the African-American community. And it's also to the point where some of those percentages have now, where the African-American community, and particularly youth, young adult, are leading now. Their percentages are higher. But in formulating, for lack of a better word, the characters, I wanted to show diversity because, as you said, that it is a subject that affects all cultures, different religious affiliations, different backgrounds. It's not just, oh, you're poor and grew up here and situational depression led to this, or, oh, you're like that. It's really something that affects all groups. And so I felt that it was important to try to at least begin to present the diversity in the subject area so that people could talk about it across the board.
when schools and theater companies and directors begin to reach out to you to solicit the rights to produce this play, what would you tell the director to do, as the steps to take as a director to produce this body of work or direct the actors into becoming the characters you've written? What would you tell them so that to do the work justice? Because we don't often get to talk to the playwright. Directors don't often get to talk to the playwright. So now we're here, we have you, and we want to produce your work now. What would you tell us to remain true to your vision of it?
I believe definitely first and foremost, you have to create a safe space for this work to be done. Because as actors, we unearth parts of ourselves in developing the character. And so inevitably in each cast that I've done this with, at least for one member, something that they are wrestling with has emerged, right? So you have to create a safe space. I think you have to let go of preconceived ideas and notions. If you have preconceived ideas about suicide or believing that it's an easy way out or different things, like that, don't touch the piece. Don't touch it, because you can end up doing more harm than hurt. So I feel you have to genuinely want to create a space that is safe for both cast, crew, and audience to begin the conversation. Do the research, because each of these characters have different backgrounds. If you are not familiar with the Islamic faith, or if you're not familiar with the story of an immigrant traveling through, if you're not familiar with kind of Southern church culture, these things, you have to do research. It's not just, let's pick up the play and read and kind of take what we get. Like, research these different cultures, and then also research suicide. Like, you have American Association of Suicidology and the National Suicide Prevention, and you have all of these resources where they've really done the research, and they can share with you not just statistics, but stories and things you may encounter in your rehearsals and how you address it. So I would just ask that anybody who wanted to do the work be willing to put in the work. Our first cast at Capitol Fringe, I think I had mentioned it's really a 5-cast show, and at that 5-person cast, and at that point I had one. Well, the person I cast as the hanger, unbeknownst to me, she asked me if we could talk. We talked, and she said, I'm so grateful that somebody is addressing this work, but I can't proceed in the role because you don't know this, but this is pretty much exactly what happened with me and my mother. And I need more time. I'm realizing in reading this, I need more time to heal. So I'm going to come to the show. I'm going to support the show, but I can't do the role. And I think that's something you have to also prepare for. It's heavy, and I won't sit here and lie. Sometimes I write heavy. Okay, sometimes the way I write is like in your face. Let's talk about it. And so you have to, I think, in doing this work, really be prepared for that. I think it was 3 years ago on World Suicide Awareness Day. We did this at the Carbell Arts Center in Carbell, North Carolina, but I had a team of psychologists and psychiatrists from children, adolescent, and adult, and they led a panel discussion. So I would really hope that if people were interested in actually doing this work, that they couple it with that it's not just, here's the play, and then you walk away, because it's a lot to take in when you watch, right? So being able to have some type of after show discussion, panel discussion, bringing people in with this type of work would probably be my personal playwright request. Because you don't want to just kind of put this out there and then just leave people to float out of the theater. It's when I started, doing productions, it's always been a goal to do things that either like health awareness or social justice advocacy. And so the whole vision with these type of plays were to put it together. We've created a space and shared this story. Now let's bring in professionals and others who can continue that work to help you. And now what do we do with this? So I think that would be the other part.
Yeah. I absolutely adore your work. Even you're right, you write heavy, but it's a heaviness that needs to be addressed that I think will help heal the world, essentially. From rainbow children, angel babies, and fruitless fig trees, you're talking about fertility issues and how that affects women. And chocolate vanilla, you're delving into race. So it's a necessary bodies of work. Now, if you are an actress or an actor, I would say definitely reach out to Veronique because these monologues can be a part of your repertoire when auditioning. If you need a dramatic monologue, here is the play to choose from. It's rich, and it will probably, propel some interest in those who are adjudicating you, because I found when I audition for things and I audition for newer plays, they're like, well, where's that from? They're always asking, like, where's that from? And I think because everybody swears that they are well read, especially those in the industry who are directors and writers. Everyone wants to be well read. And so if you're coming in with this new body of work and you are doing one of these powerhouse monologues, they are definitely going to wonder and think that you're well read too. So definitely reach out to Veronique about using a monologue from suicide journals. I'm really, really excited because we have an actress, a poet, a playwright, a person who uses creative arts as therapy for those struggling with mental health issues coming onto the show. And so I'm pretty sure you guys are going to be in awe about her journey and what she has in store. Hey everybody, we are here with Natasha Thorne. Hey Tasha.
Hey Cynthia.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I can't complain.
So Tasha is a wonderful actress. I came across Tasha, actually, you auditioned for the DC Black Theater Festival, I think like in 2015, and your audition was wonderful. Your resume was in a pile of things, and I wanted you to be in my show, but you were booked. You were booked, and I was like, oh my gosh, I had to keep you in my list of actors to pull from, and I ended up being able to have the pleasure of working with you on my first short film. Just Tasha, tell everyone about your career, how you got started.
Okay. So acting. I started in church. I think my first couple of plays were Easter Sunday and Black Nativity. But my love and passion was basketball. So in my mind, that's what I was going to pursue in my career. WNBA was what everybody expected to see me as, a basketball player. High school came, and let's just say I wasn't taking sports as seriously as I was supposed to. And I had an opportunity to make a different decision, athletics or the arts. And based on my fear of ending up in a wheelchair, based on how hard I played sports, or my passion for the game, I decided to go with the arts blindly. Slight love for it as a child, but more so music, dance, just everything involved. Not really just, I want to be on that stage. I didn't have that yet. But once I got into it in high school, and was honed by a couple of teachers that really just know, Tasha, I think this is something that you should stick with, really stuck with me. So I took that and I ran with it. My junior year, I got injured playing ball and tore my meniscus. And due to that, I said, I'm going to hang this thing up. If I go to college playing like this, you know, who knows what will happen next. So making decisions, I decided to just stick with the arts, and I went to college for theater. My parents wanted me to go to school for something that made more sense, like psychology, being a doctor, a lawyer, you know, something that paid the bills. So when I enrolled to North Carolina A&T, and I picked psychology. About 3 weeks later, you know, it's time to switch up or withdraw. I said, I can't do this psychology thing. You know what I'm saying? I got to do what I want to do. So I did professional theater, graduated. After school, I called my grandfather and said, I did it. You know, I finished school. I did what I said I was going to do. He said, okay, cool. What you graduate in? Jokingly. I'm like, you know, I got that theater degree. Stop playing with me. But he said, okay, I got a job for you. And when I came home from A&T, he got me a relationship with Art and Drama Therapy Institute, which was adult therapeutic center that helped individuals with disabilities hone the arts. That was their passion and their craft. That's what this facility allowed, or this institution allowed them to do. So it was an eye opener for me. It was still theater, but it was theater in a different facet. So from that, my career has been in mental health. So for the past 10 to 12 years, I've been using my skill set in theater to work with people with disabilities and in the mental health field. Aside from that, of course, I was still dibbling, dabbling, and hitting the stage by coming to DC Black Theater Festival just to keep, you know, exercising the will. At some point, I knew that regardless of me being in the mental health field, I always wanted to go back to my craft and tell these stories. So staying an actress, staying on stage, you know what I'm saying, staying reading these scripts and dealing with other people, staying a part of the industry always mattered to me. So I made sure every couple of years, you know, I showed my presence, or I made myself known in projects that made sense to my life. So thank you.
So seeing that you went, I was able to meet you on set as well, but I did not know that you went to North Carolina A&T until we were setting up for the interview. I was an Eagle. What I would like to, can you expand a little bit on your experience? Sometimes you'll see actors or artists that are coming up, and there's the big decision on whether they should go to college and major in theater, if they should major in something else, or if they should just go straight into the industry, maybe just taking classes or blindly auditioning. How do you feel that your time studying the craft in that collegiate setting helped or benefited you?
It benefited me tremendously. What I learned out of going to school for a theater's degree is that you learn more about life in that industry or of that work than you possibly could in just believing that if you go and take up any other degree, that's your end all be all. At some point, we all revisit this thing called imitation of life every day. So for me, I would say, if I had to suggest to anyone else how to make that decision, or what made me make my decision to go to school, but knowing that you don't have to, is all what you're willing to put into the work. If you know that your desire is to be a writer, and you know, based on your writing skill, or you know, your level of creativity, you feel that you've honed a lane that once you put your product out there or your work out there, that the response that you get back makes sense to what you put into it. For those who don't get that type of response, or don't even know what it is to just put work out and get a response back for feedback, to know where you are in your craft is another thing. But I will say that doing the due diligence of actually going to school and learning just like any other craft is never a bad thing to do. If you are a person who is kind of late in the game in terms of career, and this is something that you still want to do, you can always take classes to enhance your skill set. But if this is something that you call a career, then I think you should take the due diligence of going to school and really honing those skills. And going to school doesn't necessarily mean going to a 4-year college. That could be you taking classes with the right instructors. After I graduated, I still took the time at some point to go out and find out what other instructors and what other acting teachers were teaching. So at one point I flew out to LA for a week, and Tasha Smith has a workshop out there. And I went to her workshop for 3 days, just went and said, I want to see what the West is offering. I know what the South got. I'm from up top, I've dabbled a little bit at home, but let me see what the West is teaching their students. So when I went, and I got a taste of what it was, I said, okay, this is, it's not too different than what I went and learned in school, but there is levels, to you being an actor or an actress, period. You have your entry level, you have your advanced, you have your experts, and you're never always in the same room with someone who's on the same level as you. So you're always learning how to adapt to whoever you're in a scene with. So I would always say the more you educate yourself on your craft, the better. Some people get lucky, they just have that gift of gab where someone can, who's a producer or a director, they can just see something in you and take what you have and use it, and it be beneficial for both parties. I've seen that happen. I've been a part of that type of work. So the sky's the limit here. But at the end of the day, you have to be true to yourself, and convincing yourself that you can do it by taking shortcuts is never going to get you exactly where you want to be. Everything's trial and error, but calculated risk makes sense. And I think that taking it seriously and going to school is never a bad thing. In theater, I can't say the same for film, but that's a different conversation.
So you are not only an actor, you also have a vast music lens. Can you talk to us about that and how that got started and how you're merging the two?
Yes. So before college, I knew a lot of people who like and love music. In the DC area, there really weren't too many people concerned with becoming recording artists. There was a time where go-go was just the end-all be-all of DC. My brother took to the go-go scene once I left and went away to college. And when I came back home, he came up with this idea about having or creating our own studio in DC for people who want to indulge in becoming artists. It was not a real big thing. I think in our city, the most you heard for a span of time was Wale or a Shy Glizzy, or a Fat Trail. On the R&B side, we talking Maya and Genuine, Raheem Devine, older school artists. So with that, I said, okay, let's really look at this. And he took his time and his due diligence to go out, become an engineer and work in different studios. And we just decided, okay, we don't have a studio uptown DC for people to come to, to hone their craft. Let's make that a thing. So in 2013, we built a private studio in DC that allowed people to come in and hone their craft. I, in turn, was on the business side of things, thinking about how to structure what would happen, how we could create this. And it came to fruition. From that, my brother being an artist and being an engineer and just taking those steps from being an engineer to being an artist and learning his craft, and then finally going to school to really hone it, mixing and mastering, Dub Spot, New York. It took us to another level of, okay, this is a real demand. You know, it's not just DC. There's a lot of people who are not conscious about the music industry, period, and they want to get into something that they don't know how to move in. So for the past couple of years, my brother and I have been working on systematically creating a platform that works not just for DC artists, but for any artist who is trying to independently put themselves together as a brand so that they can sell themselves at a later time when the time is right. Me, myself, I took myself through that same process. I was, in the beginning, just a poet. I wrote poems, I wrote short stories, I wrote plays. And I said, okay, how can I take this music thing and this poetry and put it together? Most poets don't perform with music because that's the difference between the two. I took the energy from being an actress in monologue form or in acting form, you know, scene format, and put it into the music. So my tone and my dialect, or how I say certain words or how I deliver, is me being an actress and applying that to the skill set of the song. So that's what I've been working on. And it's been difficult because, you know, sometimes people want to hear what they consider a full song. And what I'm doing is more so of storytelling, but still trying to fit into what people are accustomed to hearing, just with different content. So it's been a challenge, but it's been something that, without any holds bars, I was ready to dive and dig into and just, you know, create a lane. I've created a genre for it. You know, we'll talk about that later, because I really think that there are other people who are poets or spoken word artists who have the same creative ability, but won't expand or even really tap into it if there's no lane for the exposure. So that's that.
So I love how you've been able to share with us about how you've just blended all of the different gifts and the passions that you have together, and how you had shared with us like how you're from like a top or DC area, you know, down south for college, went out for class. Where are you located now, and what does that art scene look like for you, along with you continuing to build the platform that you just spoke about?
So right now I'm in Florida, and I really came to Florida to simply just be creative. Before, I was working in the mental health field, and I quit my job to be a full-time artist and give it the time that it rightfully deserves in order to pull this thing off the way I expect to. I'm not going to say it's never been done before. It just probably hasn't been done the way I see it coming out. And I say all that with the notion that you will see music, film, visuals in 2021. That's what the buildup has been for. A lot of people can look on Facebook and Instagram, and these are the things that we go to for marketing purposes or just to see what's going on. And I've done the opposite. I've made it to where as though there is nothing to see until I'm ready to show the world what the baby is, to birth the baby, basically. So Florida has really been a peace of mind, a place, a safe space, a creative space for me to just be away from everyone else who's working and doing, you know, their due diligence in their lives, but to have that space to just not do anything other than focused on the craft. Which is writing, which is the business piece, which is making sure that not just myself, but other artists, their product, their catalog is secure. You know what I mean? Just taking care of the business of things so that everything else is smooth running later on down the line. The scene here, of course, Urban Film Festival in Miami showed us a lot of love from the project, not just this one, but just in 2016 as well. And with that, I've been creating relationships with, you know, the radio station and people who are already in this area that are just relate to the same cause. The type of music that I'm putting out is motivational music. It's reality music. It's about life, different situations and circumstances that people go through and how we're affected by it. So there's a lot of pain in there, you know, in certain areas of what I talk about. And then there's just real life, you know, from different aspects, because I've dealt with people who have all different walks of life. So that's the beauty in that. And I just think that by me being here, I'll do the same thing I've done in DC, is continue to create the right relationships that want, you know, the content. They want to hear it. They're waiting for something of this caliber to, you know, touch the surface, and I'll just be in position to fill the need.
September is Suicide Awareness Month, and I was really excited to talk to you today because of your multi-hyphenate creativity that you have, from music to theater, acting for stage and film as a writer, and also working with those who are struggling with mental health. I wanted to ask you what you think the industry, whether it be the music industry, the film, theater industry, the entertainment industry as a whole, needs to do to support those artists who are struggling with mental health, who have struggled with suicidal attempts. What do you think the industry needs to do?
The industry needs to be aware that it exists, that it's an issue, that there should be a safe space for artists to be able to deal with those issues to a point of healing. One thing that I noticed across the board, and it really doesn't matter which industry it is that we all go through trauma. And those traumas are never really in a position to be healed. There's no trauma center specified for each person's situation. You have people who go through grief and loss, and specifically suicide, you know, is a capture of grief and loss in life. So I feel like any person who expresses or shows signs that they are going through something of that caliber, there should be some type of organization or company in place that any industry can partner or collab with to allow that to happen. It may not be a label's job to deal with an artist's personal life, you know, aside from the business and handling it. But there should be some type of segue or platform on a health or holistic side that just keeps people in a space where they can continue to function. In mental health, there are like 5 different areas of life that you want to make sure you tap into and you enhance for the better quality of life. There's your spiritual, there's your mental, there's your physical, there's your social. There's one more. But in order to do that, you got to be able to balance everything. And as a people, we're not able to balance everything because we don't even know how much baggage we really carry. So knowing how to identify when someone is in a position where they feel hopeless, or like, you know, it's the end. I want to give up and I don't have any fight left in me. What tools does a person take at that point? There's no definitive line of how to medicine yourself to healing. And I think that if more time was spent in just making sure that there's an alliance for that, it would definitely help, because now it's not just being aware, but it's being considerate of those people's lives. Because at the same time, though, the same person that's out here singing or dancing or reading a script or writing a script, they have families to feed too. They have themselves to keep in position in order to keep doing the work that they do. And if you can't function, you can't work. So there should always be some type of platform, you know, aside from health insurance. And with that, you know, if you have health insurance will pay for mental health services. So that's something that a lot of people don't know. You know, if you do have insurance, you most people are eligible for mental health services. So take advantage of that.
So, Tasha, what do you do in preparation for a cold read?
Not much. It's not much to do to prepare before, but once you get it, I would say I try to read it, you know, as many times as I possibly can before performing. And in that is just finding the voice of the writer, of the character, and doing my best to hear what that person is saying and translate in the same facet, if that makes sense. So really and truly just rereading for better knowledge of what the words are really saying, is what I do. I don't know if that really answers the question in technique wise, but yeah.
No, it does.
Okay, well, we're going to take you through a cold read now. So whenever you are ready.
How gold. How gold. Okay. All right. Do I need to introduce it?
Nope.
Okay. All right. I am the oldest of 5. 2 boys, 3 girls. The oldest. The responsible one. The one who helped watch my brother and 3 little sisters while my parents worked hard to provide for us. I love my parents. The sacrifices they made for us to give us a better chance, I remember watching them work so hard for us. We came to America when I was 3 years old from Jamaica, and it was hard. I remember many nights my mother praying and crying in her room because this place was so different from her cherished home. But my parents wanted more opportunities for me and my siblings to do more, to be more. And this land was a place that was supposed to happen. But when we landed here, my parents experienced some things they had never before. They were talked down to, looked at as incapable, taunted and called out of their names because of their accents and the color of their skin. When I was 6 years old, my dad walked with me to the bodega to get me a treat for an after-school snack. As we were walking down the street, a group of teenage Caucasian males were coming from the opposite direction. Instead of sharing the sidewalk, they literally pushed my father off of the sidewalk and told him that nigger monkeys don't use the sidewalk. They used to be on all 4s like dogs, like the dogs that they are. That was the first time I saw my father with so much anger and hurt in his face. But he didn't say a word. I never got that snack that day. Instead, we walked home in silence until it was time for bed. When I was finally tucked in, my father looked me in my eyes and said, "You will excel far beyond what they expect us to. Make sure you are always at the top of everything you do and prove them wrong." Remember those words. They were etched in my mind from that day. I had to prove that I was better than what they thought of me. I had to be my best. I had to be at the top. There was no room for failure. No time to play because every moment mattered in order to reach the top. Life was about success by all means.
And scene.
Yay! How do you feel?
I feel like that was a co-read. I felt like as I was reading, I was like, I hear you, but you could have said something else. But that's what we as actors do. Like, we're so perfectionist about what we do that every time we go back and look at it, it's like, you know, oh, I heard something different this time. Well, I could have said this differently, but that's the beauty in practice. You know what I mean? For those who really hone the craft, you take the time to read and read and read and play and play and play until, you know, you get your final draft, that thing that sticks, and you can consistently do the same way over and over again. You know what I'm saying? Over time. So I like the side. I like the side.
Well, that play is The Suicide Journals. It's written by Veronique MacRae. So this episode we are covering, because it's Suicide Awareness Month, I was like, yo, we have to have Tasha on and we have to cover your play. And so I'm just so glad this could happen today.
Absolutely. And thank you both for just having me and bringing me back and just having me be a part of the Soulfly Society.
Yeah.
Theater Society. Facts. Yeah, y'all edit that. Make sure y'all edit that.
I'm thankful to be able to catch up with you and just learn more, and then B, that you like the tag, because I'm like, you got that professional background. I was so scared. Like, it's like, okay, let me keep my face straight while she reads.
Hey.
No, but just a lot of the things that you shared, I just feel are so important. All of the things that you shed to light about, you know, mental health and awareness, and especially for artists, because we'll see artists' lives plastered across, you know, the tabloids and the headlines, and it's they don't have the room to be human or breathe or heal. And, you know, so I feel like you made such an important point about there needing to be access to a resource or a space or an organization for that, because you'll see more and more, unfortunately, where we have different celebrities who have either attempted suicide or succumbed to it. So, or then different mental health issues arising in the spotlight, and it's like, where do they have that room to like you said, to heal? So I'm excited to see your baby birth in 2021, because just all of the things that you have been saying, I'm just like, this, you know, I think you're just coming up on a time where all of the things that you're doing are needed, you know, and wanted, you know. So I'm really excited about that. And I'll be keeping an eye out for when it hits, you know.
Absolutely. I can't wait either.
Well, I know the DC area will miss you, but whenever there's a project, I will be calling you. You are an amazing actor to work with. You show up on time. You deliver your lines the way they should be delivered. You even question back, wait a minute, can I do this? Should I do this? Is she supposed to do this? Like, it's been a pleasure working with you, and I'm so grateful that I met you, and I know that you are going to exceed your own expectations. So thank you, Tasha.
Thank you guys. I appreciate you.
All right, bye.
Bye. Have a good one.
Hey.